Thank you for joining us here with Learning with Ninja Pandas. And I'm going to be guiding you guys through some of the fundamentals and basics of C Sharp. And in this video, it's going to be lengthy. It's going to kind of cover some of the things that you need in order for you to start your development journey and really kind of playing around with some of this stuff. I'm going to just jump right in. What I did was I made a new folder, and inside VS Code, I hope that you have a little bit of knowledge within VS Code to get to this point, but all you got to do is click open, make a new folder, and start in there. So that's what I did here, and I just called it C Sharp Basics, and there's nothing in the Explorer. So no files, no project stuff, nothing in there. So now let's go ahead and start with a console project. And a console really project is really just set up where we're going to use the terminal within VS Code to print out some of our variables, things that we're going to go through in this video, and really get an idea of how all this gets put together. So I'm going to go ahead and in my VS Code, I'm going to go to my terminal. It's going to be one of your options up here if you're on a Mac, and you click New Terminal. And now you have that down here. You can use the terminal through your operating system, but I like using this one here for now because it's going to allow us to keep everything together. Okay, so now that we're here, what we're going to do is decide on how we're going to set up our project, right? So the nice thing about .NET 7 is it has a very general command to start the project. So we're just going to type out the word .NET. So it's not like a period, it's the word dot. And we're going to do space new space console. And while we're doing this, I'm just going to blow this up a little bit and see where we're at. There we go. Just so then you can make sure you see everything, right? So .NET new console. And for now, what we're going to do is we're just going to do dash dash and framework. And we're just going to make sure we pick version 7. So we're going to do framework space net 7.0. And this is in their docs on how to do it through Microsoft. So it's a well-known command, and all you got to do is just hit enter, and it's going to go through its pieces and it's going to get completed. And as long as you have .NET 7 installed, this command will work. These files will not show up if you don't have that installed. So if you're having issues, go back, make sure you get .NET 7, you're good to go. Now that we have this, I'm going to click on program.cs, and you're going to see this pop up. Do you want to use C Sharp? If you don't have this extension installed in VS Code, go ahead and click install. I don't, so I'm going to click install. It's going to send us to the extensions list. So VS Code is really awesome. You get to pick all sorts of extensions and things that help your coding experience out within VS Code. So C Sharp is what they recommend. So it's already installing. So should be good. Let's see. Installing. Eventually it'll get done. I'll let it do its thing. I'll come back to it in a bit while we talk about it. As long as that goes through, we'll get a little bit more additional help in the code editor. So the code editor really comes like very plain vanilla, and you get to add all these items into it to kind of make VS Code run the way you want it to run with the information you need. Now, if you decided to say, you know what, I'm just going to use Visual Studio instead, that has a lot more baked into it. It's a larger install, and even how it looks is different. So if your system does not look like this, it's probably because you're using Visual Studio and not Visual Studio Code. So Code is their lightweight free version that a lot of the developers use nowadays. Um, you could also pick any other kind of editor, no problem. You can still run some of these commands. Everything else is very similar. So I'm gonna let that run. I'm not sure why this is not installing complete. Maybe it's running in the background, but we're gonna keep going. So now we're in here, and you see just this. This is gonna be totally new. right here, you can click on here and do command click, and it's going to open up the web page. And it's really nice if you want to take a look at what's new with .NET 7 and all that. What I want you guys to do right now is let's just run this application. So I'm going to click down here and click .NET space run. And anytime you type this command in, it will run this application. So I'm going to go ahead and go back here. There we go. Get at the extension. It did .NET run. And then check this out. It said hello world. If we look at this line, Console.WriteLine is what ran this application. So once it's done, you get back out of the program and back to where you could type all sorts of commands. Now, this is great. You got your first thing going. Hello world. Now what do I do? Well, let's go ahead and just play with this for a second. So let's go ahead and do one more console write line. So console.WriteLine. And notice how it's spelled. You have to be very specific on how it is. So you have the capital C, capital W, capital L. And hey, check it out. It finally loaded the extensions. So it's going to ask you, do you want to add the things that are missing? I hit yes, just so then they're there. And I'm going to click on this so we see it. So it added the bin folder and VS Code. We're not going to worry too much about it. But the one thing that happened is this is now set. It should not say installing anymore for the extension. You go back, you see the squiggly red error, and the colors should change. So now C# has been loaded into your system, and you should be able to get help from the system to tell you, hey, there's something wrong with this, or kind of give you some guidance on what's going on. And this is very crucial for our development, so then you know, like, any small mistake or anything like that, it's going to help you so you don't write like a ton of code and realize you missed something at the very beginning or as you're writing it itself. So it's doing this here, and I hover over because it's expecting some sort of end to my command. So it's because I haven't finished typing it. I just stopped midway. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my open parentheses, and then you're going to start seeing all this stuff popping up. Just let it pop up. I'm just going to do it in quotes, and it's going to tell you, okay, now write the value. So I'm going to say my second line. All right. And then we want to do our semicolon here, and we are good to go. Now, the one thing that you have to do every time before you run it is make sure you hit save. There's a little dot there. That means there's a change that has not been recognized. You can turn autosave on if you want, but I'm just going to go through the process of just manually saving throughout this video. So we're good to go. Once we've done this, let's go ahead and hit .NET Run. And now you got hello world in my second line. So that's how we're going to start printing things to the console. So let's pick it up a little bit. We're going to try one more piece here so that we can kind of talk about what the differences are before we actually move into what variables are. So we're just going to do a console.write. And notice you have the option between write and write line. We're going to pick write, and I'm going to say I am using only a write. Perfect. Okay. So hit save. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to, one thing I'll say in a second. If you push the up arrow, you're able to cycle through all your commands that you have used so far. And I'm just using the last command I typed. So instead of typing .NET run the whole time, I'm just doing up arrow key and enter. So it's a bit easier for me to do. So feel free to do that, or just type it out if you want to get that repetition in. So then you get more comfortable with this. But now that we've done this, we have hello world, my second line, and I am using only a write. So now it's like, okay, well, this is great. I'm using a write, but let's add one more line of code right afterwards. So now I'm just going to do another console.WriteLine. and technically, this should probably be my fourth line, right? So I am the fourth line. Not really sure where I'm going with this, but it's all right. Let's go ahead and hit save, and I'm gonna go down here, up arrow key. Oops, hit up too many times, one time, and then push enter. So now I'm gonna just kind of push this up a little bit so we can see it. Right here, notice what happened. Right here. So when we use a write, it kind of made it where it's combining my third and fourth line as I'm printing out statements. So just remember that as we kind of start doing this, all these different types will allow us to kind of play with different types of formatting or usages of variables. So in this case, if we don't add the line, when it prints it out, it is not hitting the enter button. So what we're saying right here is hello world, enter. My second line, enter. I am using only a write, no enter. I am the fourth line. So that's what's happening there. And that's what write does. So if you want to play around with this a little bit more, add a couple more lines. If not, what we're going to do is jump into variables. And I'm just going to continue on this one project, and we're going to write a lot, go back at it, and keep going. So give yourself a few minutes to kind of work through that, and then we'll start the next part.